What one or many things give you the sense of being part of something that is actually bigger, greater, and more mysterious than you are alone? And how could there be just you alone without any other stuff? Some answer that question as nature, being in nature, or even Mother Nature. The Unitarian Universalist seventh principle is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, and UUs have kept this in its value of interdependence. It's practical to respect such a thing and to honor it for a healthier world, but if what you feel is closer to reverence or awe at our natural world, and indeed the universe, you may more closely adhere to pagan spiritual beliefs than any other belief system. I'm first going to talk about the natural world and how we may fit into that web. Then I am going to compare that to some other things we know and may or may not take for granted. Then I'm going to look a bit at the past of such belief structures, how they align with our modern view of the world in which we all live, and how they align with UUism. Finally, I'll talk about the meaning of Samhain, today's cross-quarter day festival, all in 20 minutes or so, so this may not be the wisest thing I've ever attempted. Our natural world affects us despite our best efforts sometimes. It shows itself to be bigger and more powerful than we are. Despite our growing ability to predict, harness, and protect ourselves from it, the punches it pulls can be catastrophic to us and our communities. I just would like for you to consider this for a moment when also considering where the concept of deity came from in humanity's murky past. So, if you're comfortable now thinking of nature as God, well, you're completely there, and you may already consider yourself a pagan. I know maybe such things are laughable or scoffable. Deity. Ah, but pagans are not whining victims of nature or any deity and what it can do, nor are they mindlessly in awe of every facet of nature. They consider themselves instead to be part of that nature and completely able to negotiate with it. In fact, they sometimes know that their will can prevail over that powerful deity. That is blasphemy in any other religion, of course. Natural religion started with observing and learning about this world that we live in. It started with that reverence, yes, respect for nature and what it was and what it could do. It comes with a desire to understand more and more and more. Then, just as we wanted clothing and tools made by those that are the best at making them, which may not have been ourselves, people began to specialize in that form of learning the natural world, and those leaders were revered and respected too. They became priestesses and priests. But maybe, just maybe, those trying to understand the world better and better are what we now call scientists. And what Joseph Priestley, our most famous UU from this area, or Unitarian actually, he called them natural philosophers, and that term was used not so long ago. But with knowledge comes power, and keeping that knowledge to oneself preserves that power for oneself. And so the world's first religion was truly born with the purpose of having power and authority in human life and guiding and unfortunately manipulating people, perhaps with benevolent intent, so that they do what those new religious leaders thought best when they used this knowledge to trick and manipulate. People thought it was magic, a power that only some could use and control. Now, I'm aware that I'm talking to a room of people who would strongly disagree with what I'm saying is fanciful nonsense, but we are all aware of ancient people marking time, casting shadows in specific places to denote we've traversed through something called time in a similar way and coming back to the same place in our solar system. And this growing knowledge was so new and amazing that it must have been thought of as magic. It's easy to stand smugly on the shoulders of giants looking at foolish thoughts and beliefs. But what if there were no such shoulders to stand on, and all knowledge was new? How wondrous might the world feel then? Think of that darkness, with no electricity and no cell phones to light up the night, comfortable here in our living rooms under our electric lights. It's easy to be firm in our rational minds, but if I were to take any of you into a dark forest, that comfort would likely evaporate into proper rational fear. But look up. Think of those moving stars and the traveling sun and moon. Again, do you feel wonder when looking up at them? That's why we refer to light in religious terms all the time. Today, we can admit that we are part of something interconnected, even if we don't understand all the aspects of such a thing. One example of how the pagan calendar denotes these connections to natural cycles is its organization coming once humans established agrarian societies. The cross-quarter days of the pagan year also denote the actual changing of seasons, establishing a time of action when those seasons on which survival depended. Changing back to viewing the seasons to the older pagan view of more subtle change has made it so we don't need to remember that the last part of astronomical spring gets really hot and the last part of fall gets really cold. Astronomy only partially indicates what happens on the surface of a planet. This system allows the people to take action at the same time of year each year. Astronomy is what ancient people used to mark time, but it does not denote the seasonal changes that take place, which are important to survival on the face of the planet. Paganism has many aspects that have come through the past to us today, some through reinterpretation, like much of what we now call the Celtic tradition, or through trying to more strictly adhere to the most tenacious ancient paganism of Western culture, that is Norse, Nordic, or North paganism. Adherence to North paganism does require specific beliefs in deity, symbolism, and ceremony or ritual. This type of paganism resisted Christianity longer than other forms in European tribal cultures. We all know that what paganism resisted was the growing influence and arm of Christianity. So, boo Christianity? Not really. What Christianity protested against was the control a priestly caste had upon society. It wanted to remove power from them and place it on something bigger than everyone, and monotheism was perfect for this. Now, yes, this is my opinion, but Christianity taught something else. Love and caring as something that was worthy of our time and our very essence as human beings. It should not be surprising that Unitarian Universalists have retained that element of another religion. So, perhaps we gather universal truths to build our theology. That was a digression, but I wanted to also touch upon the imperfection of any system of spirituality. I do not claim paganism as some perfect way from our remote past, but I do suggest that it is a path that one can take to return to a way of shared spiritual enlightenment. Now, that's a lot of background, and there is much more. But now I'd like to talk about, at last, Samhain, the cross-quarter day of the pagan calendar declaring the beginning of winter. The beginning of astronomical winter, of course, is what pagans consider midwinter, and it's still marked by both pagans and Christians alike. Some of the last vestiges may really only exist in the singing of hymns like In the Bleak Midwinter, but we sing that in the original midwinter at solstice. Winter is the time to prepare for surviving cold. We have had harvest or autumn, which started August 1st. That, of course, plays its role in surviving the winter. But again, I want to transport you back to a time when it's getting very dark and very cold, and our ability to stay warm is limited, and hunger and starvation in the winter are very real things. Thus, denoting and acting at this time was crucial to survival. So why, you might ask, since this is no longer so crucial, would we need paganism and marking time this way? Does that make it antiquated and no longer needed? Does anyone have a thought about this? I'll give you a moment. Well, part of that answer, if it is not glaringly obvious, is that we have lost touch with nature. We have lost touch with how to treat the planet and ourselves as a matter of that same course. Yes, I'm talking about climate change, but I'm also talking about our diminishing world overall. That world in which we need to reverse our course and become aware of again. Aware indeed of how interdependent things actually are. Samhain is the perfect time to begin this process of reconnecting to the planet and to the usefulness of more ancient ways. It is a time to both look back and look forward. Much of what I will be using over the course of this next year is from Gail Duff, who is a British born-again pagan of sorts. What she offers, she has learned from folks whose family and life traditions are pagan, based on roots that go back for generations. Samhain is also the perfect point to begin our conversation about paganism and the ways of Wicca over the next year, as it is Pagan New Year, and it marks the end of the season of growing, a pause and reflection, and the beginning of a new year. It's about endings and beginnings. We take stock of our past but look forward to the future. We remember and connect to those we have lost from this world as well. And in specific rituals, we can connect to them, as it is believed that at this time of year, our connection to the spirit world is closer. And while I don't expect you to believe such a thing literally, you can certainly move closer to those who have left us within your own hearts. Foreign to our atheistic and scientific views, and seemingly offensive to our newer-ish non-binary views, much of the pagan way is about the god and the goddess and their relationship. It is actually about the interplay, how they coalesce, and how they combine. So the new gender awareness is actually that old sense of combining the sexes from paganism. At this time of year, the god is the old man who dies and lies beneath the earth, waiting to be reborn in the spring. And the goddess becomes the crone, whose wisdom sustains us and allows us this time of coming darkness and reflection, so that we are always reborn, our improved selves. You can take a card right now or a piece of paper and write on the front your ending for Samhain, and on the back your beginning for next year. This is something you will complete for yourself, and you will have the time between now and solstice to ponder it. On the front of the card, write the name of a person who passed within the last year that held meaning for you in your life, or the name of something you completed, like a degree or a final cancer treatment or trips to every state in the Union. You get the idea. On the other side of the card or paper, write down how that person or thing has transformed you over the past year, and how you expect that to carry you into the future in a positive way. So let's say that you did get chemo for cancer. You could write something like, "After all the difficulty and my sickness and fatigue, I felt stronger. When they declared me cancer-free, I felt how wonderful medical science is. Going forward, I'd like to help others in their cancer journeys." So, I'd like to close, instead of with all these thoughts and ideas about religion and deity, with the lyrics to a song that was done as the prelude to today's service. This will hopefully put you in touch with the natural world. And after you listen to this, I encourage you to go outdoors and to reconnect with nature. The winter squash lies with withered vine, final leaves fall, the veil twixt the worlds grows thin. The last preparations are made, man and beast busily ready for the mother's next move. The night falls soon, darkness entreats a winter's day. Bird and mouse slumber in their lair. The bright sun glares on new-fallen snow, ice crunches underfoot. When visiting swift water streams, brace cheeks, regal the cold.